It's Friday, Feedback Friday, the feedbackiest day of the week. It's Feedback Friday, and I am still recovering from heat stroke. Yeah, I got heat stroke Tuesday night. I sincerely apologize for missing Twitch. This, I think, is like the second Tuesday. No, I missed it and then did it and then missed it again. Momo needs dental work again, and we're trying to get it done while he's in remission from the sinus stuff, because if he's really congested, anesthetic is much more dangerous. And so we haven't been able to find a dental surgeon we're comfortable with up here in our new location, so we're taking it back to our old vet, who did his original dental extractions with the inflammatory rhinosinusitis. And we got stuck in rush hour traffic. So poor Momo and me and my husband were in the car for 2 hours, and the sun was beating down, and Momo was sitting on my lap in the sunbeam. And so I thought, okay, I'm roasting. I am dying here, but he seems very happy just sitting on my lap in the sunbeam. And it was right when I started feeling kind of nauseous that he started panting. And I'm like, uh-oh. So he turned on the air conditioning, and Momo immediately sat between the seats where the AC was just blasting on him, right? Meanwhile, I was in the back still just roasting. So by the time I got to the vet, I was really jelly-legged and not thinking terribly clearly. I carried him into the vet. Momo hates the carrier, and it causes him to like pant and wheeze even more. So I just hold on to him and carry him in. And I hate being that guy, but you know, it's harm reduction sort of thing. And I forgot my phone in the car. And by the time we got back in the car, it was 6:30, and I was a half hour late, and people already going, is there Twitch tonight? Which I really appreciate. I'm really sorry. I hate doing that. I prefer to let things know in advance so people aren't waiting around. But that was just, it was a comedy of errors, and I just wasn't in my right mind. I went home afterwards. It was an hour back, not 2 hours. But poor Momo, 3 hours in the car. He's like drinking water like crazy at the vet. He just went home. He slept for an hour, and he was fine. He needed his shots because they won't do surgery without updated shots, and he came due during the move. So they gave him his shots, and so he'll be back in June for the surgery. Smack on the last day of the E3 stuff. Actually, no, it'll be, the press conferences will be done by then, I think. I don't know. Yeah, that's what's happening. Again, sorry. That's my apology for the week. I thought I'd be doing another apology about Monday's video, but I sat with it. That's what I'm going to primarily be talking about for the rest of this video, with a side of Wednesday stuff, the stuff about CD Projekt Red and Crunch. There was a lot of agreement, high amount of agreement. I'm going to be talking a lot about Crunch. Crunch is just an issue that's not going away. So, yeah, I'll leave it there for now and focus on the other two. The Wednesday video got demonetized. I called it. I expected it would. And that's why things like the additional PayPal support, the Twitch, the Patreon, help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. It's so important because these additional funding models, the Kickstarter that's coming up mid-June for Boss Fight, these all allow me to talk about these issues. I know we'll get demonetized and not be at the mercy of YouTube sponsors. I think it's ridiculous that something like heartbeat legislation ends up getting passed. I marked the video as news and politics. It was clearly fair game. There's nothing in news and politics that isn't potentially controversial, and YouTube is picking winners and losers regarding what topics are acceptable to talk about, and that's pretty chilling. And um, fortunately, these forms of monetization exist, these alternative forms of monetization, so I'm not at the mercy of YouTube's monetization policies completely. So that's why I'm so bullish on it. It's not perfect, nothing's perfect, but I do want to say one more thing about Wednesday's video before I move on to Mondays. Just that there were quite a few comments about from anti-circumcision advocates. And some of you may not know this because you're new to my channel, because there have been a lot of new people. Welcome. That is one of the few topics, possibly the only topic. No, there's one other one, but I don't talk about that topic. And it is strictly for family reasons. I am Jewish. Large portions of my family are Jewish. And by that, I mean, don't eat bacon, have two separate sets of dishes, don't eat bread on Passover, Jewish. You know, it's not just a bloodline thing. We actually do practice. And that is a really touchy subject. I am not male, so I am not directly affected by that issue. And so out of respect for the men in my family who have very strong opinions on the subject, I don't talk about it. The same way I believe that there are certain women's issues that men should listen more and talk less. This is an issue that I really believe I should listen more and talk less. Now, some people came at me pretty hard on Twitter and made a lot of assumptions about my opinions without asking. I warned them right off the bat, you know, I'm Jewish, right? Now, some guys are great about it. They're like, totally understands the sensitivity, fine. Some guys aren't as respectful. And so I'm like, all right. I'm basically like, I'll examine the logic of your statements, but I'm not going to offer any opinions of my own. Other than, you know, I just basically said to a couple people, I consider that issue one more, because I see how people think that that issue is also a body autonomy issue. So it was on topic on the video in that regard. I personally consider that a parental consent issue, as opposed to a body autonomy one, because infants can't communicate. And I got things thrown at me that like, well, that means that parents could cut off kids' ears and cut off little fingers. And the truth is that I know more than one person who had their ears pinned back as a baby. They didn't consent. Parents are allowed to remove additional fingers because they're concerned about a kid fitting in. They don't want them to look different. These are all things that, you know, parents can't have the right to not vaccinate their kids. Something I strongly disagree with, but that is their right. The only other thing I would add on the subject is that in issues of all these things, criminalization does not stop the practice. You know, FGM is one of those things where it's illegal on the books. A lot of places where it's still done because parents just can't stop. And so if you care about this issue, you need to do an education campaign, not just, and convince, persuade, not just insist something be made illegal, because the problem is, however you feel about this issue, if things are made illegal, the process doesn't stop. The procedure just becomes more dangerous. And because, you know, we're dealing with babies here, I think that's the last thing we want, to make it less safe and potentially more painful. That's the last thing we all want. So that's all I'm going to say about it. That is all I ever say about it. You'll notice I am not talking about my own opinions on the issue. I am talking about these are things to consider. Please do not try to shame me or bully me or name call me or anything like that into talking about this. I will not. I will block you or mute you before I do that, because sometimes we just need to draw lines to keep the peace at home. And I hope you understand that. Thanks. And that tactics issue is what's going to segue into Monday's video. I spent a lot of time thinking about this. I spent a lot of time looking into the very extreme reaction from some people about the Daenerys Targaryen compare and contrast with, Iron Man in Endgame. And to put it in perspective, the video connected to abortion was significantly better received than this video about a TV show and a movie. And I didn't plan it that way. That just happened. Because I wasn't initially going to do that Wednesday video at all. Somebody talked me into it. See, I can't be persuaded. And I actually spent a lot of time talking to somebody who did very pleasantly, very effectively disagree with me on some elements of Avengers Endgame. And we had a lovely conversation. She helped me research a lot of the points about it, look into it, but also I asked her about how to respond to it, because she was somebody who disagreed with me on a few points. And so, and in talking to her, this isn't what she told me. I want to be clear. I'm owning this decision, but if I do feel very badly that people felt bad. I do feel bad that people seem to get legitimately triggered by this, because a lot of the things they were saying made no sense. They were wild speculation and conspiracy theories about how I deliberately provoked people for video content. And at first I had a hard time understanding what they were even saying to me, because who would do that? Now, apparently some people have done that. That was not even in my mind. I went back and watched the video again. All I said was I basically did a cheeky thing to test people's responses. That because people are very inconsistent involving the reactions to media. And so I left a vagary. But I didn't force anyone to freak out. I didn't deliberately hit any known sensitive stuff, and people were actually telling me off, calling me names. I got compared both to Sargon of Akkad and the Gamers Are Dead writers from Gamergate, which both absolutely cannot be true. They're on completely different opposite ends of the ideological spectrum. And the issue with the Gamers Are Dead articles was that they didn't, to me anyway, they didn't leave it with their opinions about games or fictional characters. They went after actual real life gamers and that identity. That crosses lines. And I did not do that. It is a completely fair thing to make fair but provocative statements to learn about how people react. That is not the same as entrapping someone or saying something that is deliberately and knowingly going to extremely upset someone. You guys gotta understand, no one assumes that people are going to completely lose their minds over television and movies. This stuff is supposed to be fun to talk about, no matter how much we disagree. And I actually said in the video that I don't come at this from, problematic behaviors, that it causes things in real life. It's art criticism. I said that right in the video before I expressed my opinion and showed the tweet. I also got accused by people of making a false equivalency. People swore up and down with me. It's stupid. It's stupid a lot, including by one guy who has never seen a single episode of Game of Thrones. But according to him, even he knows my false equivalency is stupid. Well, I took the timestamp of the video at 5 minutes and 2 seconds. I actually flat out said in that video, I'm not saying it's a direct apples to apples comparison. It was the disparity that there was no happy medium or gray area in the responses. It was a level of disparity. But again, at 5 minutes and 2 seconds in that video, look it up if you want. I said, I am not saying it's a direct apples to apples comparison. Direct quote. And still, numerous people accused me of a false equivalency. Equivalents are apples to apples. I flat out said I wasn't doing that. I was explicitly clear I was not doing that, and people still strawman the shit out of that point. And as much as I can absolutely empathize, the people got very upset for reasons that I can only assume are related to identity. I cannot reward the way some people chose to deal with that. And by that, I mean false accusations, name calling, that alone. Let's just leave it there. There are a bunch of other things that I just thought way below the belt. Comparing me to people who tried to ruin my career, way over the line. And that guy then accused me of dismissing his opinion. And he only finally backed off when I said, I'm not dismissing your opinion. I'm dismissing your tactics. And I have the right to do that. Boundaries. And he finally said, okay, that's fair, but it took 2 days. And it's very frustrating to me when I spend 2 days on and off debating with somebody when they accuse me of dismissing them, because that's the exact opposite of dismissal. The challenge I have when these things happen is that I refuse to reward bad behavior. It is not about the disagreement. Like I said, I had lovely chats with people who disagreed with me. Some people came around to my way of thinking. Other people didn't, but we still had really great conversations about what we liked about the Marvel movies, what we liked about Game of Thrones. It stimulated conversation. That is how mature, stable adults deal with these things, because these things are not that important. These are not life or death issues in the real world. This is entertainment we either find entertaining or don't find entertaining. Video games do not cause real violence. TV shows do not cause real-world violence. Movies do not cause real-world violence. Media about violence does not cause real-world violence, does not cause sexism, does not cause racism. People with bigotries seek out bigoted content. People who don't have those bigotries don't like that content. There is no cultivated effect. None. What it does is cultivate attitudes about the real world through years and years and years of consuming violent imagery, but that isn't the same as making someone violent. So this stuff does not matter, and it should not be treated as more serious than real life news items that we were able to all mostly discuss like grown-ups, even the people with very strong views that I talked about earlier. So I can't reward that, and I can't make that forward, because that's not fair to the people who behaved. And once again, like the last Game of Thrones video I did, it's a very, very vocal minority just pounding that dislike button. But unfortunately, you guys are only really 5% of the total audience. That's not significant enough to spend a lot of time on. Now, I did look into some stuff because, again, some people did disagree respectfully. A lot of people agreed too. They didn't necessarily go and push the like button. They had conversations with me. But, I did look into the claim that the armies of Thanos were just slavering monsters. They weren't sentient. They had no empathy. In essence, they didn't feel pain or have people that cared about them. Therefore, it's not the same. I looked into that. Hard. And in 2 out of the 4 elements of Thanos' army, that is true. The Outriders are literally just slavering beasts. The what are they called now? The Chitauri. They are basically cybernetically augmented soldiers that are a hive mind, and apparently they're controlled by these motherships. And if they don't get commands anymore, they just die. They're basically, meat robots. Then there's the what do they call it? The Black Order, the sort of lieutenant tier of Thanos' army, and they're zealots. I might be getting this wrong. I'm looking it up again. La. Shoot, never mind. The Black Order. There we go. They are zealots. They are there willingly. They are Thanos' most devoted followers. Yes, they chose to be there. They knew what they signed up for. But the 4th part of Thanos' army are this group called the Sakarans. Now, it's a little difficult to figure out if Sakarans are a race or just an indication of planet of origin. But Meek, little purple guy from Thor Ragnarok who's adorable in that Fortnite scene sitting there eating pizza. Meek eating pizza was like my favorite freaking part of Endgame, like by far. I'm going to show you a picture of Meek because it's not Meek eating pizza, but I freaking love Meek. He was like, no kidding, my favorite part of Endgame. Him eating pizza, here he is. There's Meek. He is a Sicarian. There are also other type of Sicarians who are kind of weird, like black-faced, like not that kind of blackface, like kind of they look like mummies sort of thing in the movie. But we know that Meek was forced by the Grandmaster on Sakaar to fight in the battle arena, which means Sakaar is a client state of the Kree. It was conquered, and there is conscription into the various fighting forces, the Kree, Thanos' army, Ronan the Destroyer, one of Ronan's associates, but they're not there by choice. They're forced. They're conscripted soldiers. And we know that, to an extent, the Sakarans have free will. And that is where my issue lies with Tony Stark's choice. Now, as many people pointed out to me, it was a snap decision. Literally. Bad pun, I know. It was a spur of the moment decision. It was completely in character to overkill it. But I think it's very, very important because, again, media does not cause violence. It does frame our view of the world. It cultivates normative opinion to some extent. There's first order versus second order effects. I won't bore you. But the Sakarans are sentient. They do feel pain. They do make choices. Meek, I love Meek, finally chose to defy the Grandmaster and escape. So we know that at least some Sakarans are capable of it. Now, we saw in that scene, pew pew fight laser, that some of them were injured. It is a war crime. It is a violation of the Geneva Convention to just go and kill a wounded soldier who is out of the battle. Doesn't matter if they're an enemy combatant. Doesn't matter if they're a friendly. There are requirements. It's Rule 110, treatment of the care of the wounded, sick, and shipwrecked. Just warfare, as humane as warfare can be, you can't just kill injured people. They're not attacking you. They're no threat. That's the whole idea. You're supposed to provide the medical care and the opportunity to surrender. Tony Stark didn't do that. He just snapped everybody away, not just the people who were still attacking the wounded as well. That is a violation of the Geneva Convention. That is a different violation of the Geneva Convention than, the killing of civilians. But it's a violation of the Geneva Convention, no less. Again, not an apples to apples comparison, a violation of a different part of the same rules of warfare. Interestingly, there's also Rule 118 is about deprivation of liberty and what the rights of people deprived of their liberty are, which one could make the argument that the Chitauri fit that bill, but I'm not going to go down there because we already have something that's far more cut and dried than that. And so we don't have to say it's bad writing. We do have to point out that Iron Man made a decision that, now granted, the Geneva Convention does not apply to aliens, but if they are humans or humanoid-like aliens, now keep in mind that in the Avengers, people expressed issue with, how many people Loki killed. The slaughter of frost giants apparently didn't concern them so much, but the Asgardians do matter. They were basically given refugee status on Earth. So it's not just humans, not just Earthlings. Asgardians count. So as long as they're sort of sentient and individualized, then there is a certain amount of fair treatment of aliens in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Yes, Delilah. Tony Stark violated that. Again, snap decision. These are the things that people have to make these decisions and live with them in war. But again, I have issues with the fact that not a single other character took issue with what he did. And maybe that's something they'll deal with in follow-up films. But again, remember in Avengers where they had that scene and they smashed that city and they got on them for 4 movies afterwards because they destroyed an entire city, killed a whole bunch of people. I wonder if we'll see that. But my point is not stupid, first of all, and that's, if you're going to take that shot, you better be able to back it up, because if I can provide evidence, well, it doesn't sound so stupid anymore, doesn't it? You were just being a jerk. Sorry, commenters. But it's also, these are things we do have to consider, because media is very powerful in how we formulate things. I also extensively put on Twitter that, if you start getting into the morality of the Dothraki, which is what Daenerys identifies as, if you go back and you watch all the things about her names, she doesn't call herself Daenerys Targaryen. She calls herself Daenerys Stormborn. First of her name, Breaker of Chains, Khaleesi, Mother of Dragons. She will respond to Khaleesi much more rapidly than Targaryen. She is functioning based on Dothraki morality. Dothraki morality doesn't give a flying fook about civilian casualties. When Khal Drogo was convincing the Dothraki to go across the sea, he promised them burning cities to the ground and raping women and, all this stuff. They don't give a shit about protecting civilians. And, then there's all this other stuff about Cersei had the opportunity to surrender. She said no. If I'm Daenerys, I'm going to consider that Cersei would be wily enough and unethical enough to fake a surrender to throw her army off her game. There are reasons that are not evil that could explain what she did. Now, we have that stupid talking show afterwards that they said, oh, she just saw the keep and had an emotional reaction, but that's not on screen. That to me isn't the same thing. Dumbledore's gay. Well, it wasn't in the books, so what? Now they've worked into the movies, I understand. I haven't seen that one. But, on screen, we are not given reasons for why Daenerys did what she did. And her emotional reactions, even then, I'm petting Delilah's tummy. She's sitting here. Are tied up in the morality of her adopted people, right? The people that followed her. All this matters. All this matters when judging morality. It's not a morality we understand, but it is a consistent morality. She did not do, what Cersei did, which is put civilians in harm's way for a tactical advantage. Those people were only there because Cersei put them there. And I thought that Kit Harington made an interesting point that, Daenerys has not been, as he put it, a good person from the beginning. She burned people alive for disagreeing with her. She strung people up on the side of the road. As I pointed out, she watched without emotion her own brother. Yes, he was a bad person, but still her own brother being turned into basically an Oscar statue by her husband with no emotion. That's cold. People just saw what they wanted to see. And I thought that was the pretty neat thing. And Kit Harington said that why basically are we so uncomfortable with the idea that two women could be corrupted by power the same way men have been corrupted by power? Good for Kit Harington. I think that's a really good point. And that's the point, I was talking about protagonist bias, but that's another point. Like, why can we go, as some people did, finally the compromise is, well, yeah, Tony Stark didn't do the most virtuous thing, but it was a snap decision. It's in that way, they are comparative, not equal, not equivalent. They are comparative. I stand by that. And you know what? It doesn't matter. If you disagree with me, that's fine. It's a movie. It's a TV show. Don't call people stupid over movies and TV shows. Don't accuse people of false equivalencies when they bother to say this is not an apples to apples comparison. Don't do that. Don't be like that. That's not... First of all, it makes you seem... This is just a point of interest if you care. It makes you seem like you have emotional problems. There were a few people I actually continued talking to only because I was really worried they might hurt themselves if I just, muted them. I'm not kidding. I was actually concerned. They really seemed unhinged because they were getting so upset about this. And this is why I like a good debate, but I don't like debating on the internet because these debates do not stay in bounds over stuff that is not that important. And that's why it's supposed to be fun to debate this stuff. It's not fun if you start freaking out at people, and people called me sexist because I'm saying all women think alike. No, that's not the point. And stupid and this and that. Way overdone. And all you really did at the end of the day was underline the point I made at the beginning, which, no, once again, I categorically deny the idea that I just deliberately upset people for YouTube content. That's absurd. I do not know of anybody doing it. Apparently people do that. I don't get that. I don't give myself enough credit for being able to manipulate people that reliably. I described what I did as a cheeky thing. That's it. Not the same. Practical joke. Funny joke. Slightly annoying because someone's the butt of joke, but just slightly annoying. Not life ruining. And do not expect anyone to listen to you. Expect to get dismissed if you come at someone with a false accusation or you call them names over a movie or a TV show. Like, name calling is generally a bad tactic anyway, but over fiction? Like, seriously? Seriously. And the thing is, I know a lot of the people that did that don't like it when it's done to them. That's the trauma. So why are you doing it to other people? It doesn't make any sense. And I will never respond to that. I will never back down in the face of that. There are just some things you should not do. There are just some things that there need to be lines. And I'm sure people will continue to be mad at me because they don't want to see my point, because their identity is so tied up in something. That makes me very sad that people are hanging on that by their fingernails that way. This stuff should not upset you this much. It's just a TV show. It's just a movie. When you go and accuse a real life person, in this case it's me, of being a bad person or behaving immorally or unethically because you disagree with them on a television or a movie show, expect to get dismissed. And if someone dismisses you on those grounds, they are not doing anything wrong. That is an act of self-preservation. Because one of the things about being able to handle criticism is knowing which criticism to listen to and which disagreements to listen to and which ones to not listen to. Because if you listen to every point of criticism, fair or unfair, you get nothing done. Because so often, as I showed, the criticism conflicts. One person will have one opinion, another person will have a completely different opinion. You have to decide whether to cancel each other out or one person made a better argument than the other. This is all part of effectively listening to, handling, and processing criticism. Part of that is going, you know what? This bit of criticism is not worth my time, because otherwise you go crazy. You just go nuts. You spend so much time wallowing in the nasty crap people say about you that you can't function. So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you so much to the people that attempted to see my point of view, saw my point of view, disagreed, but did so in a fun way that led to a really great conversation. It is possible, and this is where the point comes that you're calling people haters. They're not your haters. They're your fans. I'm sorry. When somebody calls me stupid, you call me stupid, you're being a hater. I am objectively not stupid. You start calling me names, you're not behaving like a fan, you're behaving like a hater, and I don't have to listen to you. Help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/Leanna K. Have a great weekend, and I promise you, just online Internet Geneva Convention, I will do something less controversial on Monday. Thanks for watching.